Hey there, everyone. Before we start the show, we here at Popcorn for Dinner want to give a big shout out to our good friend and illustrator, Kyle Kedzik, for helping us celebrate making it to 40 episodes with some brand new custom artwork, which is now up on all of our social media accounts. We love it. We hope you love it. And if you're looking for some new custom artwork for your business or project, you can look him up on Facebook at Kyle Kedzik, or even drop him a line at kylekedzik@gmail.com. That's KYLEKEDZUCH@gmail.com. Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
Christmas Movies Month continues this week with a classic. At least as far as people who are as old as us in America. Can't say for any other demographic or any other place in the world.
Yeah, essentially millennials.
Yeah, it's a very millennial movie.
Yes.
And it's just one of those movies. One of those goddamn movies.
Oh my God.
Like every single step, like you can see every single move, 10 moves ahead, everything that's coming, exactly what it's going to be.
Yep.
Even down sometimes to like the joke of the scenario. Like, oh yeah, that's what this is going to be because it's a movie from the 90s and it's a comedy.
Yep.
And it's about Christmas. That adds another layer of like stuff they got to hit. Like, oh, you got to make sure to have this. You got to make sure to have this. You got to make sure to have this guy in it specifically, which I'm sure we'll talk about. Or maybe I'll forget and I'm just leading everybody on. But the movie that we are talking about this week is the 1996 American Christmas family comedy film, Jingle All the Way, with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sinbad.
Yes.
Boy, howdy, that's a 90s movie.
Yeah, it is. Oh,
that
my
is the
God.
only decade this movie could have happened in. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you get a movie and you're like, oh, you know what? Those two people were popular at this time too, like in the late 80s and in through the 90s and maybe the early 2000s. Like, no, this is the only time this movie could have happened.
And it's really because of Sinbad.
1996. Yeah. Had you seen this one before?
I had not.
Not at all. Nothing?
No, like I remember like trailers and knew of it, knew it was like he's trying to get a toy last minute sort of ordeal. I knew coming into it that it had Arnie and that it had Sinbad. That was about it. That was the extent of my knowledge.
There's a lot of folks in this, surprisingly, even in some bigger and some smaller roles, which makes sense considering the time.
Yeah.
Like Chris Parnell's part as one of the clerks, who's whatever. It's like, that's Chris Parnell. It's like, yeah, but this was 1996 Chris Parnell. So he gets that one thing. He's great as the like clerk laughing in his face about the Turbo Man doll and everything. But it's like, that's all you're going to get.
Yeah.
Because it's 1996.
Yeah.
Jim Belushi as the fucking like drunken criminal Santa.
Yes, that was the last note in my notes. It was a Belushi.
Yeah, totally. And he's not even bad. It's not even like, oh my God, Jim Belushi. It's like, no, he plays that role. It's good. It's a supporting part. It's not like you have to sit with him the whole movie or something. Well, obviously Phil Hartman as Ted. Oh my goodness gracious. What a fantastic, like, what a great thing that this movie holds. Like, overall, I'm not even saying that I like didn't like it because I wound up having so much more fun than I expected. I was like, I saw this movie around the time it probably came out, and then like maybe a few times in like late teens, sort of like ironically, you know, kind of watching it. But I hadn't really sat down and watched it as a movie in a long time. So I was like, something tells me it's not going to hold up.
Yeah.
And a lot of it did in great ways that I was like, oh my God, this is actually fantastic. But it is great that it has like an actual like great thing in it, which is just like just another example of Phil Hartman. Like we have so little, like pitifully little stuff from Phil Hartman, you know, like we should have had so much more.
Yeah.
So to have that just fucking brilliant. Oh my God. His like over the top ridiculous mannerisms as that like creepy hitting on your wife neighbor guy. Like, oh, these cookies, my God. Like, oh, he's hysterical and creepy and awful. And
he played that role perfectly.
Yeah.
There were several notes that was, God, Ted is such a creep.
Even like for the time, you know, when when creepy behavior is like sometimes unfortunately like just the way things go in these worlds in the 90s. Like he even goes a step beyond just the normal. Also I loved the giant Santa who is the Big Show from wrestling.
Okay.
He also plays Captain Insano in The Waterboy. When he calls into that wrestling show, it's him, it's Paul White who plays the Big Show. I love that dude. He's so funny. He's such a cool dude. And like I had completely in my head as a kid, it was just like, and then some huge guy.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever put it together. Like, oh my God, it's the Big Show. That's amazing. And hysterical that like, I bet you that they didn't expect they would have to get somebody so huge to play the huge Santa. But since they cast Arnold, it was like, God, we got to find the biggest fucking guy.
Arnold was going to be the huge Santa.
Yeah, like that was our original plan. He just tested so well as the believable Minnesotan.
Yeah.
That's the funniest thing in the world. And it's one of my favorite things about like so many Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. Like there's just it you can't blame the movie for it, and I rarely do unless it's like really, really bad. Like this is sort of silly and lighthearted and whatnot. So you're just kind of like, okay, whatever. And they even kind of hang a lampshade on it when Phil Hartman tells him you can't bench press your way out of this. But the fact that it's like any movie trying to portray him as average Joe, like workaholic Howard is like, really? He's a workaholic and he has the time to bodybuild to the extent that he looks like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
And then also like just how distinctive he is. Like there is nothing like lost him in a crowd about this guy. There's like no way to do that. So when the end of the movie, when his wife doesn't recognize him, like you think it's some other huge Austrian guy. Like it's clearly just the gap in his teeth alone. Like it's so distinctive. Like he looks like no one else in the world.
Yeah.
And they cast him as the everyman all the time. It's so like seemingly unintentionally funny. Like I would wish that they would have that in mind when they do that. Like, oh, you know, be fucking bananas as the everyman. Let's get Schwarzenegger. Like,
do it.
But it's
get him on the phone.
Also hysterical though is the fact that the dude they get to play Myron, his like counterpart dude for the movie, is like the one guy taller than Schwarzenegger. So you see him and you're like, what the fuck?
Why are these two tall dudes just hanging out?
Well, not just that, but you're like, you know, it's like you look at Schwarzenegger, and especially after he's done so many movies with Danny DeVito at this point. I think he's done 2. He's done like Twins and the one where he's pregnant. I forget what it's called now. But
Mr. Mom.
No, that's a different concept. Okay. It like technically could probably swap titles, but that's not what that's about.
Okay.
But like in those movies, he's with Danny DeVito, so it's hysterical of like the counter. He's so huge, he's so tiny, and all that. So you look at a movie like this, where it's like, okay, here's Schwarzenegger. He's the big bumbling, like, oaf kind of guy. Okay. And who's the little dude with him? And it's like, no. He's the little dude of the two. What? You're kidding me. Looked it up. He's 6'4". Sinbad is 6'4".
That is a tall dude.
Apparently, according to Wikipedia and stuff, Joe Pesci was in consideration to play Myron. Joe Pesci, you say? Right around Casino era Joe Pesci.
Interesting.
That's a pretty good.
All right.
Also really close to like My Cousin Vinny and stuff. So it's like that dude's hysterical too. That would have been great. And then one that I know that you wouldn't like know of, Jake Lloyd, who plays Jamie, the little boy. A couple of years later, 3 years later, is Anakin in Star Wars Episode 1.
Gotcha.
He's little kid Anakin.
He did look kind of familiar. Like it seems like I've seen him somewhere before. I hadn't looked into it, but thank you for confirming that I wasn't completely crazy.
No, yeah, definitely. I mean, he is also apparently in. Oh no, that's Apollo 11. I was like, he was in Apollo 13. Holy shit! No, he was in Apollo 11. He was on ER in 1996, this exact time. So that might be what you recognize him from, way back in your mind.
Yeah, somewhere back in my memory. There's a lot of that. It's like,
sure.
they were on 3 episodes of ER. Okay, all right.
And then there was one other person that was like a total like, of course you got this person to do it, is Danny Woodburn playing Jim Belushi's Santa's elf. And it's like, oh hey, look, it's Mickey from Seinfeld who gets all pissed off about having to play elves, and then all of a sudden this movie he's playing an elf. Of course, like, did you know that, or is this literally typecasting him, or what's going on here? But I thought it was funny to see him like, oh, you're playing an elf.
While we're on the topic of the elves, there were a couple elves in that warehouse, and there was some like kind of demeaning ADR to them, like being tossed across the room.
Yeah, like super high pitched voices and joke. Yeah, it's super, super bad. That whole chunk I wrote down into my notes. That was punching dwarves, the height of 90s comedy. Like, that's one thing that really just it happened real quick too. It wasn't like a thing that, you know, like over time, you know, you sit and watch movies like this as a kid and it kind of like gets into your head. And then for a while afterwards, you kind of have to like, like shake that out once you realize like, oh geez, I've watched a shit ton of movies where this terrible thing happens and I haven't really registered how terrible it is.
Yeah.
And so now I have to kind of like, right. Yeah. But for some reason, the whole like dwarf tossing subgenre of comedy that would always pop up in movies in like the 90s, early 2000s. Like, I think I was like 11 because I think it was that movie Corky Romano.
Okay.
With Chris Kattan.
I know of it.
Yeah, it has a really stupid, shitty, like dwarf fight scene towards the end. And even as a fucking like 11-year-old watching it, I was like, ugh.
Yeah.
And I realized I was like, yeah, this is never really been funny.
Yeah.
Like the closest I can come to laughing at anything like that is like Wee Man from Jackass, because it's like, because he's just hurting himself because he wants to make you laugh. Like he's trying to make you laugh with the goofy shit he's doing.
Yeah.
It's his idea.
Yeah.
These people are just getting paid to do a job to do something demeaning.
Yeah.
He wants to be demeaning.
When he comes up with it, it's okay.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that whole sequence had plenty of
terribleness.
Yeah. And I guess that song and dance number is not in the theatrical cut. Because I totally forgot to mention, we watched the extended cut, which is like 4 minutes longer. So it's like nothing really.
Yeah.
One thing that it does great, I was reading afterwards about the movie, and I saw some people comment about like, oh man, it's so hysterical, that scene after the credits. And I was like, shit, we turned it off.
Yeah.
Typically I wait, but a lot of times I'm like, it's just probably not.
Yeah.
Jaws 2 doesn't have a scene at the end. Yeah. Let's just go.
It's Jingle All the Way.
Yeah, exactly. So I was like, fuck. So I was going to look it up for us to just watch it on YouTube. Like, I'm sure somebody put it on YouTube. We could just watch it there instead of having to put the DVD back in and getting all the way to the end or something. And then it turns out that the scene after the credits is that scene where he asks, or his wife asks, like, oh, what'd you get me? And he goes like, the like sequel bait. Yeah. That was after the credits in the theatrical cut.
Gotcha.
And the extended cut just crammed it at the end of the movie. I was like, oh, well, thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. I didn't have to sit through the fucking credits to watch this dumb little like sequel bait hook. Okay, that's great. The song and dance with the Santas, which is like definitely something that I didn't remember. I wrote into my notes. I was like, oh, why are they singing? Yeah. Like, why is this happening right now? But it wasn't a case of like, what the fuck? I don't fucking remember this. Because there was a lot of stuff where I was like, I don't fully remember this, but I know it, like, I can tell where it's going, but I don't fully remember this whole thing. But the song and dance was really like, okay. Yeah. And apparently that was not in the theatrical cut. Yeah. Also apparently cut from it, which it was just like goes to show how little I remembered about it. Because I was like, really? I thought that was in the... Okay. All right. I guess it wasn't. The scene where he buys the doll from Lisa Yardley Smith.
Oh.
which I was like, oh my God, it's Yardley Smith. I was so happy to see her. But apparently that scene isn't in the theatrical cut of the movie. Apparently it's probably on like TV versions, you know, where they put in stuff to like fill time or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, yeah, because I swear I've seen that before where he buys it from her and then he's like, booster, it's a booster, and throws in the garbage and shit. But either way, that apparently also is something that was cut. And then there's like little tiny bits of like, there's a few more lines with this character. And there's a few things over here. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But nothing too crazy. But I guess I'm glad we watched it so that we didn't have to sit through the credits or anything.
Yeah.
I like the look on like the consumerist Christmas junk and the one big toy debacles that have occurred over the years.
Yeah.
And
the
like
Tickle Me Elmo.
Yeah.
That was the big one of our childhood.
And I know that there were plenty of freakouts over like Beanie Babies and shit. And all
Furbies.
That kind of stuff. Furbies.
Tamagotchis.
Yeah, like the just absolute lunacy, which it's like we kind of still have, but it's in like different kinds of things. It's not so much like an actual like single physical toy. Yeah. It's like it's the thing. It's the phone in your hand. You know, it's the tablet.
Phone, it's the video game.
Exactly. Like specifically. But I liked that. I liked the way that it kind of like tackled that and then the ridiculous like mania that comes with that sort of stuff. Even if it gives his kids some really shitty things to say to him. I didn't write it down specifically, but that whole like the whole diatribe he goes on about Turbo Man when he comes home and he's like, oh, sorry, I missed your karate thing and all that, which I wrote down. I was like, Christmas movies are all about dads that suck. Yeah. And that's basically it. That's the story of Christmas. Yeah. Dads suck. They'll try to make it up to you in a magical way. Dads will let you down. But the kid gets so excited about the Turbo Man thing and everything. And he's like, oh, Johnny's going to get one and Jimmy's going to get one. And anyone who doesn't get one is going to be the biggest loser in the world or something like that. And it's like, oh God, kid, you're so indoctrinated. Yeah. like I feel for him while at the same time being like, fuck you. Like he's so demanding all the time. And it's like, I get it. He's a kid and he wants his dad around just like the fucking kid from last week, just like Charlie from Jack Frost. Like, he's a kid. He wants his dad around. His dad's not around. I get it.
Is that going to be the movie next week too?
I mean, I don't know. We'll see. But like just the we go every year. Well, you didn't go last year or the year before. Talking about the parade the next day.
Mom and I go.
Yeah, and I was like, God, you're so passive aggressive too.
Yeah.
It's like you're not just demanding, but you're also like just being a real dick about it. Yeah. But again, he's like 9 years old or something. I don't know. So it's like you can't really be like, oh, fuck you, kid. But the like mindset that he is shown to have, that like awful consumerist little kid mindset, is a great little bit of like satire of the real world about it's like this kid who literally is like so pissed off he won't even look at his dad, but then when being bought off with a toy he wants is suddenly like, oh my God. Yeah. And it's like, oh, that's pretty funny. Makes the kid look shitty. Yeah, it does. Really makes that kid look shitty and kind of makes Howard look shitty in comparison, like because he's like so willing to do that, to be like, oh cool, wipe my hands of this, like awesome, this huge big thing that I did where I like depressed my son and he's you know disillusioned and he doesn't love me anymore or whatever. I just have to buy a thing and then he's cool. Awesome, great parenting. Like it's kind of terrible. But it's all just set up for the chase. You know, like that's the entire point of the movie, obviously. So it's like it has to be that important so that he would go through all of this. If he felt there was another way, he would have stopped after like the first 4 or 5 stores and been like, you know what, there's a better way. Yeah. But he has to think this is like his only way, which obviously is his like mistake that he's supposed to learn from and all that. I do find it strange how little he learns and does. That very like I like I said, I had forgotten so much of it that I was like, okay, I get, like, you know, he disappoints the kid and then he finds the doll but he doesn't. Like I remember some of those little things and I knew that he like gets in the suit and flies around at the end. but I thought there was like something he did to like show the kid that he actually like he really didn't do anything
apart from like saving his life, which was
lunacy.
Well, yeah, but also just like human nature to try and save a child's life. You know, it wasn't just because that was his son.
Howard got what he deserved playing with fire the way that he was.
Yes.
Being like, oh, I am Turbo Man. And your kid believing in Turbo Man and believing that this man in front of him is the Turbo Man. Like, not just that. Like, that's a huge thing that I didn't kind of realize until more towards the end. I didn't feel like maybe the movie felt it didn't need to like explain it any further. But I was like, okay, so this kid loves the Turbo Man show.
Yeah.
And then towards the end of it, it's like, oh no, he's still at that state where he like believes in the show.
Yeah.
Seems a little old for that. I don't remember though. Like, I don't have kids, and I don't remember what I was like as a kid of seeing stuff on TV and being like, the Power Rangers, which clearly that show was a parody of at the beginning. It was Power Rangers. That was
absolutely
so Power Rangers.
Yeah. I didn't even have to write a note about that one.
Oh yeah. But like, he seemed a little old to be at that state of being like, you're the real Turbo Man who is real.
Yeah, you are the superhero.
Yeah, but the fact that he plays along with it to the point of being like, I am in the suit and I am Turbo Man and you are my favorite little boy and therefore he must actually be a villain. You know what I mean? Like once you start down that road, then all of a sudden you have to be like, okay, so that guy's really a villain, so he's coming for you, so the kid's gonna run. Oh, and the kid's gonna try to escape. Oh, and the kid's climbing up a building. Oh my god, the kid's climbing on a tree on top of a building. Oh my god, it's tipping over. Oh my god, like all of that escalation is on you for starting the ball of being like, Turbo Man's totally real, and I'm him, and I'm here to save you. And the kid's like, okay, I'll just save my Turbo Man. Doesn't matter that I'm climbing a building.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, Paul, or Howard, all your fault. Where'd I get Paul from? Who's Paul?
I have no idea.
I don't think there's a Paul in this movie.
I don't think so, unless there's a Paul actor in the movie.
Yeah, possibly. But I loved the chase. Like you got to even like, okay, you have to love it because that's the point of the movie.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, then you hate it, then okay, whatever. But
then don't watch this movie.
Yeah, then you absolutely shouldn't. But I dug it, and I even like, for some reason, it takes a special formula to it, or just a special kind of chemistry or something. Like watching Jack Frost last week, despite all of the like, it's just a kid's movie kind of stuff. I couldn't not overanalyze it. But in this one, all the things that happened, like I wrote them down and I noticed them, but they weren't nearly as huge of things to me. Like the fact that he can't stop running into that same cop all the time.
Yeah.
And by the end of it, I was like, and now it feels like all of this has just been a setup so that when he gets to the parade at the end, he can't just walk to his family, because he bumps into the fucking cop again and has to run and then escapes into the building where he gets suited up as Turbo Man and sent onto the float. It's like, none of that happens. The movie's over.
Yeah.
The movie is done with the adventure, and now he's just going to go to the parade and be with his family and be like, this is what I should have been doing all along. You know what I mean? And there it is. It's,
and he could have learned something.
Yeah, and maybe he learned something and talks to his family or anything like that. But he runs into that cop for like the 5th time in a day.
Yeah.
And I get it. It's Minnesota. So it's not like it's New York City where it's like, how the fuck could they ever run into each other? But it is like 5 different times.
Yeah, and it's still like the Twin Cities. That's not like...
Yeah, it's not necessarily a tiny...
You know, that's not like one little suburb. It's like running into the same cop in different parts of Chicago multiple times in one day.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be insane. Like,
no.
why are you even here? What are you...
Yeah.
Like,
why are
don't
you...
you have a district or something? I don't know how cops work. Also, on top of the cop, Myron running into him all the time. And me thinking at one point, like, he's got to be following him.
Yeah.
Like, there has to be a bit, like, did I forget? Like, that there's a line somewhere where he's like, I'll put a tracking device on you or something like that. Like, well, how does he keep showing up at the exact same places? And sometimes it makes sense because it's like another toy store.
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's like the random diner.
Yeah.
And he's just like, oh, hey, it's you. Like, what the fuck? How
Why?
are you here?
Why?
Impossible. But still, as much fun as it is to sit and like joke about it, it didn't bug me at all while watching it. It was just like, yep. And here it is again, like these two guys in the like goofy comedic battle for the toy.
Mm-hmm.
And all the hijinks they get into that are a little bit like there were a lot of bits in this movie where I was like, this was for kids. And you know what I mean? Like that's really what it's for.
Mm-hmm.
Like you have a movie where fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger punches an animatronic reindeer in the face.
Yeah.
Like this is a kid's movie. Like, that's the whole fucking point. So like silly, goofy jokes play well for the kids. And then there's ones that are a little weird, like something that I'm sure a kid would just sort of like blow past them and they wouldn't even notice. But like Myron's rant when he's in line about his wife.
Yeah.
Like, you slept with everybody at the post office except for you. Or it's like, I'm sure a kid doesn't give a shit about that line. That kid hears that and doesn't think another thing about it. And it's just like over his head. And the parents are like, holy shit. But the one that really got to me was when he chases the little girl, when the giant Austrian man chases the small girl through the like play place thing. And it's like, okay, it's silly because it's like a large man on a kid's thing and it's like it's the wrong size for him.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But it is still just a strange man chasing a child.
Yeah.
A very small child.
Yes.
And then everyone like sensing that and beating him and calling him a pervert.
Yeah.
And him having to be like, I'm not a pervert. Like that's a punchline in a kid's movie is I am not a pervert. Is so strange. Like that joke is only for adults, and it's like a good little chunk too. It's not just like, oh, he talks to a kid and someone calls him a pervert. It's like no. He hunts her down systematically through the tubes and over the fucking bridges and shit of this play place, and like confronts her in the ball pit. Like it's a little odd.
I actually wrote like this ball bit goes on a bit too long.
Like him trying to get a thing from a small child is funny. And him needing to like chase after the kid, okay. But there's a certain point where like once it's like in the physical spaces of the children, like crawling through the tubes after her and stuff, it's like there's only one way this scene is going, is that people have to think he's a pervert. There's no way it ends any other way.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I'm sitting here trying to think of it like plot wise. And it's like they just run around and they try to find toys and people laugh in their faces. And there's that one great little montage of Schwarzenegger driving in the car and the superimposed like neon signs from a bunch of toy stores like flash in front of his face. And it's like, to me, that trope comes from The Simpsons, which means they stole it from somewhere that I don't know.
Yeah.
And but it's like it's such like a sort of classic like montage thing to do of like someone, you know, have a shot of someone like driving in their car. And then, you know, what are they doing? They're driving around to bars all night long. And so you show the illuminated signs of the bars or shit like that. So in this case, it's like the dad driving around to toy stores. So that's what you get in the montage.
Yeah.
Is the toy store names and stuff. I thought that was great. I was like, this is hysterical. But the montage takes so goddamn long. And I had completely forgotten like the timeline of this movie and like how it's playing in terms of like how long before Christmas it is, how long he has to get the toy. Obviously I knew it was like in a day, but they even undercut it there where it's like, not only do you have to get it today, you have to get it by like 1 p.m. or something because you've got to go to this fucking parade too. It seems like he only has a very brief window of time to do this. And I feel like he uses all of that time in the first like 10 minutes of the search. They show him going to like 8 different stores, and it's like there's no way there's this many toy stores in a small little area. You've driven all over the place, buddy.
Yeah.
And then it's like, no, he's still got like 3 hours till the parade somehow. Like, oh my God.
He only had 4 hours to start with.
Yeah, like it's insane. It seemed weird that they like that it had to be like that, but like I guess they wanted the Turbo Man parade stuff to happen in the daytime. Like if it was up to me, I would set the fucking Christmas parade like finale at night.
Yeah.
With like Christmas lights everywhere and shit. And maybe you could hide a little more of that dodgy CGI of him flying around and shit. Like you could hide it better if it's darker.
Yeah.
Broad daylight does it no favors. But yeah, it seemed a little odd that they would do that in daytime, but whatever. Yeah. But I was a little bit bummed. Like obviously it's great that Myron is basically just like a villain. For the most part, like, you know, he has that little like about face at the end when Jamie gives him the toy, like, oh, your son needs it or whatever, like you deserve it or whatever.
Yeah, I have the real Turbo Man at home.
Yeah, which is like, kid,
no, you don't.
I don't understand what you think is happening. Do you now believe that your dad is like, you know, like all this time, like, Dad, why didn't you ever tell me that you were on this TV show and you were the real Turbo Man? Like, oh no. Oh, I've created a monster. Like, this is going to take a lot of explaining to unravel all this in his tiny brain. I was hoping that the kid would give him that Turbo Man and be like, it's okay. My dad said he got me one already. Like, you know, like, oh, fuck. You know, like that it would be some sort of like turnabout on him.
Yeah.
But in the end, it was just like, I don't actually need the toy. And I guess that's better for like the overall story.
Yeah.
It's like the kid loves his dad. And it's like, well, he loves the dad that he thinks is a superhero. How long will this joy truly last?
Yeah.
Also, pretty certain she was like this close to divorcing him.
Yeah, it definitely
She had a very specific line. I don't know if I wrote it down. I mean, I did write down the one where she says, damn you, Howard. I was like, holy shit. That's intense.
Yeah.
I forget what that was.
That was in response to Jamie like yelling at him on the phone.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That whole little bit. That sort of moment was so obviously like what it was, you know, like I was saying at the beginning about like seeing it 10 moves ahead. Like, and then there's going to be the moment where he yells at the kid or just, you know, the kid gets on his nerves or something. Oh, there it is. Yep. There we go. Like, and then that makes everyone even more mad at him.
Yep. Right on schedule.
Checking the watch, making sure. But there were a lot of funny jokes in it. And especially ones that caught me completely off guard that I had totally forgotten about, including when Sinbad says Rodney King when he's getting tackled by those people for the like rubber ball with the number on it. Yeah. I was like, I choose to believe that was 100% him.
Yeah.
And that those screenwriters, who I guarantee you are white guys, like, I'm sorry, I can practically guarantee you without even looking at it that everyone who wrote this movie was a white guy, that they would never write that line into that scene.
No.
And that Sinbad was like, oh, you know, it would be fucking hysterical and would probably make everybody on set very uncomfortable. And that would be very funny to me is if I said Rodney King when I was getting trampled by shoppers or whatever. Like, holy shit, that's dark for a kid's movie.
Yeah.
But it's like, well, what do you do? I mean, keep it in the movie. Sinbad loved it.
Yeah.
I think like it's the different things that they think of to like give him a shot at getting one of these dolls, where it's like, you know, that like none of them are gonna work. Like you must. There's no way that he just like gets one.
Yeah.
And then the movie's over. So like they just get so increasingly ridiculous, where it's like, oh, this store has a new shipment, but there's limited supplies, so they're giving out lottery balls. It's like, I don't know if anyone's ever done that before. It seems like something that could have happened back in the day. Yeah. You know, like when there were these sorts of crazes for things where it was like, I need my fucking Furby or whatever it is. You know, like I that's probably something that's happened before.
Yeah.
So like that being one of them, and then obviously it's like for some reason it's a bouncy ball instead of like, you know, a ping pong ball.
I mean, ping pong balls are still quite bouncy.
Right, but this clearly was like heavy,
like a super ball.
And a super ball, and it bounced forever.
And fit in a small child's mouth.
Yeah, somehow. It was weird.
Also really gross. That kid probably got lots of diseases.
Yeah, I mean, let's just put it this way. Kids have diseases. They're disgusting little monsters.
This is true.
So, like, I bet you they didn't even have to ask that kid to do that. They were just like, so you're going to take and the kid's like, oh. And you're like, oh, well, yeah.
Just
like
don't
that.
eat it.
Yeah, just please don't swallow. Oh, God. But
we have backups, right?
Yeah, we got another kid, right?
I was talking about the ball.
Kid's got a twin, right? We already have footage. We need it to match. But like, that obviously goes wrong and he doesn't get it. And then I thought that one was hysterical that it just like dies off, where it's like he had one and then he lost it and then Sinbad had it and then he made them take it from him, like telling the crowd that he had two, so they stole the one from him, so they just both didn't have one.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh well, shit, fuck that. And then was the Christmas or the crime family Christmas thing, the Santas,
yes,
and all that shit was that one. So it's like something's got to go wrong here. And I was surprised that it was like more than one thing, because it was like it would seem like it would be one or the other. It seems like it would be like a faulty, shitty piece of shit knockoff toy that he pays full price for, or he would get it and then the cops would show up and he'd have to like ditch it or something.
Yeah,
like it seemed like it would be one or the other, but they got both.
Yeah,
it was like it's garbage and the cops are here. Like, oh shit. So then he doesn't get that one, and then that's when they meet at the diner, him and Myron again, because Myron doesn't come with on his journey out to the like Santa warehouse. Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess makes sense. Like, it at least makes a little bit of sense. Like, the screenwriters saw a place they shouldn't go because it's just too far. It's like, okay, look, he can randomly run into him on the street, and he can randomly run into him at this diner, but he cannot randomly run into him at the Santa warehouse. That's just ridiculous. And they knew they had to pull back. But then the very next scene, they run into each other at the diner. And then that's when that fucking the radio contest thing happens. When they get to the radio station, they bust in to be like, we know the thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's a call-in contest. Yeah. At no point, like, I understand that cook and the diner or whatever, like, probably wanted you gone because you were fighting in the booth.
And you broke the phone.
Oh, yeah. And you totally destroyed the phone. So I'm sure he was just like, hey, fucking radio station's over there. Just go over there and make a mess, you psychopaths.
Yeah.
But the fact that they both think like, oh, yes, that's a good idea. We should show up in person for this call-in contest. Yeah. It's like, you idiots, why would you think that would ever work? I don't understand. Like, I'm assuming they just don't know how it works either. Like, they were as ignorant about calling contests as me. But even I knew that you can't just like break into the building and be like, am I the 53rd caller? Like, clearly you're not. Yeah. You are here in person.
You are the
first,
a
lunatic.
You're the first person to be here.
Yeah, good for you, but you're a psychopath.
Yeah. I mean, the DJ did make a mention like, oh, did you guys think that we had the doll here?
Right.
So it could have been they're going there to steal it also?
Well, okay. So, yeah. Well, just they bust in and he fucking spouts off all the reindeer names. Yeah. As though like, I am the winner. Ah, ha, ha, I'm the winner. And it's like, no. Yeah. You're clearly not. You haven't followed any of the rules. Yeah. And you have broken laws. Yes. So many laws. Yes. So many laws broken by both of them. Only Myron gets arrested at the end. Once the like video footage of a lot of their hijinks finally goes to the police from all these places that they were and have like wrecked shit at, they're coming for Howard. Yeah. They're going to come and they're going to arrest him for doing a lot of the shit that Myron did too. Because they basically both did most of everything.
Well, Howard also, though, impersonated a cop.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So that was a pretty big one.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Especially two other cops.
Yeah.
It's to, not like, just in general. Get out of being in trouble.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely going to be bad news for him. That's really the last one, right? They go there, the bomb goes off, which doesn't kill anybody, which I thought was so strange, but it's like, okay, once it cuts to the cops and they're standing there and the guy just is like cartoonishly like had his like hair blown back and his face covered in ash and stuff. Yeah. You're like, okay, well, I know what I expected and this is better than that. Yeah. But that's still weird. Yeah. Like, just because they're not dead, like you assume when the bomb goes off and everyone's like, oh, and you're like, wow, this is dark.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty damn dark. Even with as funny as Sinbad's line is, of like, that was a bomb? There's some sick people in this world. There's a sick people. Like, that's hysterical. But also, you're just like, and those cops are dead.
Yeah.
Whoa. And then it's like, no, they're not dead. And you're like, oh, right. But still.
Yeah.
You really wanted us to
in
think.
reality.
Yeah, those are some dead-ass cops.
Yeah. And possibly DJ. Too,
Yeah,
and whoever
anyone
else
anyone
was
on
working.
that floor, possibly the building, who knows? But yeah, and then that's when he goes home and he's going to steal the one from Ted.
Yes.
From under his tree, which is like, okay, on one hand, he is a creep who apparently has banged like all the ladies in the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Based on that like one scene towards the beginning where they're all like, oh, Ted, you came over and helped me so good. He's just like, yes, I have. Like, oh my God. This is overt movie.
Yeah.
This is not subtle at all.
Yeah.
But he finally decides he's going to steal it from him and then realizes like, oh, what am I doing? Stealing from a child. Also thought it was like the whole setup for that sequence. Because Ted is over at Howard's house and he's putting the star on the tree. And Howard comes home and he sees that through the window and he's like, oh, you son of a bitch. So he's going to go and steal the Turbo Man from him. Like, fuck you. You take my tree star putting on, I'll take your kid's Turbo Man, whatever. And he busts into the house and he finds the Turbo Man. And then he's going to leave and he gets caught up by carolers, which they show like at the beginning of the sequence. That they're like going around the neighborhood. So it's been set up that there's carolers walking around. So the carolers are out front and Howard's inside. So he hides. Like, oh, shit. And then Ted and Howard's wife, what the fuck was her name? Liz come outside. And they just watch it from Howard's porch. Watching the carolers who are facing away from them.
Yeah, they're
towards
facing
Ted's supposedly empty house. And Ted doesn't say anything about it. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't he be like, hey, or like try, you know, is it like, oh, they're stuck. They have to finish the song before we can talk to them. You know what I mean? Like, you can't find any way to be like, you're waiting for nobody. There's nobody in that house. You know what I mean? To be like, come on, stand over here, or be like, hey, why don't we walk over to my house and enjoy this?
Yeah.
Instead, they just stand on the porch and watch them sing to an empty house.
Yeah.
Thought that was so strange.
And just politely wait their turn for the carolers to then come to Howard's house.
Yeah, like, I guess so. They're going to watch the whole set. They're going to see it already. They're going to ruin it for themselves. They're going to know what's coming. And then they're just going to watch it again, and it's not going to be as good.
Unless the carolers only do one song to an empty house.
And then that's when Howard starts a fire in Ted's house.
Because the reindeer gets in.
Yeah, well, no, I thought that was before the reindeer gets in. He starts the fire just by being, like, careless and shit. And then he, like, kicks the thing or throws the thing that's on fire out the front window. At which point Ted finally comes over like, oh my God, what the hell? Yeah. I just thought it was so strange that like he starts a fire in the house and he kicks the thing through the front window and you know, all that shit. And despite the fact that Ted has been an asshole, like, or at least just like a super creep, it's like he has a very real reason to be extremely angry right now.
Yeah.
And he's kind of not.
Yeah.
And it's like, is it because you want to bang his wife? That you're not going to get mad at him, but it's like you'd think like use that as a wedge. You know what I mean? Like get mad at him about it and be like, this is ridiculous. I've been helping her out so much and you've done this and, you know, whatever, like make them mad at each other or whatever his little creepy plan is.
Yeah.
But he just kind of is just like, oh, well, oh, geez. It's like he's destroying your house. Like this is a legitimate grief you should have with him. This is not cool. Obviously he gets much not cooler later.
Yeah.
When he drives Liz to the parade. Well, Liz and the kids, but he lets the kids out early and then tries to like mac on her. I forget exactly what his whole.
Well,
he's just.
First, he did probably one of the worst things he did in the whole movie, and that was offer her non-alcoholic eggnog.
Yeah, what's the point?
Exactly. Like, who just drinks? Who likes the taste of eggnog? You drink eggnog because it's boozy. Like, right? Like that's I mean, my understanding of eggnog.
It would be like taking shots of non-alcoholic tequila, but you get all of the burn. It's like, why would you do that? Like, I just like to feel that without getting drunk. Yeah, I'm sure you do. Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, he just like gets all up in her grill about how he's
calls her Lizzie.
Yeah. and he's like better than Howard, and
she deserves better, and any number of women from the neighborhood would kill to be in her position.
Oh yeah, she's like, I'm a lucky girl. And then she just smacks him in the face with the thermos, right? And then bails. Yeah, which is like, obviously you're like rooting for her and whatnot. It was just like, it was just getting to that point where it's like he's being so weird the whole movie.
Yeah,
like untying the apron by like hugging around her and untying it behind her. But yeah, you know, you're rooting for her to smack him in the face. Yeah, and it's been a long time coming. But it's sort of like, at that point you're just like, all right, yeah, he's creepy. She needs to figure out if she's gonna fall for it or if she's gonna realize he's a creep. Obviously she's gonna realize he's a creep, because that would be a weird ending to this movie. It was like, oh, Jamie, oh, I love you so much. Also, apparently we're getting divorced. Didn't see that one coming. Oh, shit. I was a little bit just like disappointed at the ending of the whole thing. Where it's just like, you kind of haven't learned a thing, Howard. Yeah. He has that one line that I wrote down where he says, it's time I start keeping my promises. I think he says that to the reindeer. I don't remember. It's like as he's gonna go off to the fucking parade or something. And my note on that is, I'd say that's too late, but give it a try, I guess. Yeah. Like it seemed like that was like that was his problem at the start of the movie, not by the middle of the movie. Like by the middle of the movie, your problem has increased. Yeah. It is not just the same thing from the beginning. You know, it's like it has to. Now it's gotten to the point where it's like, and you're a lunatic and you're breaking into people's houses and you didn't get the toy.
You're forcing a reindeer to drink. Well, I guess he's not forcing the reindeer to drink, but he's feeding or providing beer to a reindeer. Like that was
such a strange sequence right there. Did not understand why. Like, I guess they just wanted more use out of that reindeer puppet. They're like, we can make it burp. And they're like, holy shit, write a scene where it burps.
That's hysterical.
And then I mean, did you notice its eyes? When it burped, its eye like it like goes like googly eyed a little bit. It was really funny. Like, as creepy as that reindeer puppet was, it was a little hysterical. Like how goofy it looked. Or it's like, that is so not a reindeer. Yeah, that is so a very strange puppet. Yeah, but it's not strange enough to be creepy.
It's not Jack Frost.
Yeah, it's not the Jack Frost snowman. It's not at that point. It's like just cartoonish enough, but also like somewhat realistic. But those eyes, dude, like I gotta like just look up that clip on YouTube or something. You can see it. Like, wow. It's great. But yeah, like he's been a dick so long through this whole movie, and then it's like, oh, I guess I should be keeping my promises. And it's like, okay, so I guess he was just gonna meet him at the parade.
Yeah, like he promised to go to the parade with them.
I guess that was sort of what kind of threw me for that ending of that movie, is that like trying to wrap that up as the end of the movie. You know what I mean? Where it's like, oh, I guess I should fulfill my promises and go to that parade. It's like, you never said you weren't gonna. Yeah. In fact, like that was like the whole reason why you wanted to get all this done, was so that you could get home and you could go to that parade. Like, at no point was this parade seeming like a burden to you. Yeah. Other than the fact that it gave you a ticking clock of when you had to get this fucking toy. You know what I mean? Like, it was never like, oh, that fucking parade. Or like, geez, again with the parade, Jamie. Or, you know, like nobody was angry about the parade. And at no point did he say he wasn't going to go. So to be like, I'm finally going to keep my promise. It's like, about the thing that you were already going to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, that's not heroic. There's nothing here where it's like, oh my God, Howard, oh, you're so wonderful. But it is a little dickish of her to be like, yeah, he's probably not coming. And it's like, did you invite him? Like, well, no. In fact, I said he probably shouldn't. It's like, wait a minute, hold on. Yeah. That's no longer his deal. It's become your deal. Two of you, both of you together. So yeah, it was just weird. And then it just comes down to like, okay, so he just has to literally superhero save his child from falling to death in these suits that apparently work for some reason. It's the biggest question mark of this movie. Yeah. In a movie that like it's like we were saying last week, like kind of how we're jumping from movie to movie, where it's like last week was way more magical. This week was supposed to be a little more grounded, and it is to a certain extent.
It is until the like last like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the thing that makes that so crappy. Like even in retrospect of like, it's a cheesy movie. Yeah, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's Sinbad. It's Christmas. It's, you know, whatever. you can't be too mad at it for a lot of the stuff that it does, because it's just like, well, of course it's going to do that. Come on.
Yeah.
But the fact that it lays the groundwork of being like a silly, slightly cartoonish, but movie about people doing things and the emotions between them, you know, and, you know, what is she's towards the beginning, I think she says, like, I'm not the one you need to apologize to.
Yeah.
You know, like about the kid and everything, which is kind of exactly what happened last week.
Karate. It wasn't my karate tournament or whatever.
Right. Exactly. Where it's like, hey, whoa, you gotta deal with this, like a true emotional, like things between father and son. Yeah. And then for the end of it to just be like, oh, also jetpacks work, and he just saves him from Sinbad turned supervillain. Like, what? What the fuck does that mean? Like,
and that boomerang worked.
Yeah, the boomerang works. The discs work. The jetpack works. Fist works.
Yes.
Sinbad's fist comes off.
Yeah.
And punches him in the face and then reattaches itself, and he's just like, haha, cool. And it's like, what the fuck? Yeah. That's real?
How? How is that?
How could it ever be real?
I don't understand.
Super crazy. And it's like, again, it's not like it's like, oh God, this masterpiece of a film is ruined by these final moments. But it is just a thing of like, man, I wish that there was an actual dramatic end scene where people seem like they've learned something.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's really just them being like, holy shit, Howard, you were Turbo Man. And him being like, I guess I was. Yeah. And then it's over. Merry Christmas. Like, wait, what? And everyone's just happy? There's no more questions?
Yeah.
He broke into Ted's house. That was like an hour ago. Like, do you know how fucking, like, I don't know. It seems crazy to me that, like, they're that close to fucking divorce by the end of that scene at Ted's house. There's a specific line she has that I wish I had written down, but I didn't. But she makes a distinct thing of, like, it might not be us doing something anymore. Or it was something along those lines where it very, very specifically implied a separation of them without specifically just saying, like, I'm going to divorce you.
Yeah.
But it's like they were that close. And then that whole Turbo Man sequence happens and they don't know it's him. So she doesn't know it's him. So to her son, whose dad may never be in the picture again because who knows what they're thinking.
Yeah.
And she also just got assaulted by another guy moments ago.
Yeah.
Like, horrible place for her to be in, but she's just sitting there and she's like, this actor of Turbo Man is saving my son's life.
Yeah, knows him by name.
Yeah, and then also saves him from dangling from a building. Did you see her reaction when Jamie gets, like, safely back to Earth? Like, back to solid ground where he's not dangling for his life. It was like the gentlest, like just a little bit of, like, hand on her sternum, just gently going like, oh, yeah, that was it. That was the reaction to my kid is now safe after all of this.
Yeah.
It's insane. I'm going to assume stuff was cut.
Yeah.
I'm going to assume that ending was cut around a lot because it seemed insane for it to be like, and your kid's no longer going to die. And she's like, oh, thank goodness the car's still where I parked it. You know, like that was the level of reaction she had.
Yeah.
So weird. But then they're like thanking Turbo Man and being like, oh my God, thank you so much for saving him. And he's got this toy and everything's all cool and everything. And then he takes the mask off and she realizes that it's him. And it's like, you have to process everything that's happened in the last like 3 or so hours of like, my husband is just gone.
Yeah.
It's cell phones everywhere. Yeah. So we can't just call him or text him all day. So it has to be like, he has to call us from a payphone somewhere.
Yeah.
Otherwise we don't know where he is. Disappears all day. Next time I see him, he is in Ted's house, burning it down, stealing from him.
Yeah.
And then the next time I see him after telling him off is him pulling off this Turbo Man mask that I somehow didn't recognize him under. And
despite
showing me
it
that
being
he's
just a yellow like face shield.
It's just like he's right there, lady.
Yeah, his whole face.
Whole face right there.
Jamie too. Jamie goes right up to him on the float. Like, you don't recognize that is your father.
Yeah, really. Your Austrian father. Like, your Austrian bodybuilder father. There's not many of those around here.
Yeah.
All of that, and then it's just like, oh my God, Howard, it was you. well, everything's fine. End of movie. It's like, man, get something. I get, like, you can't have the whole movie be about, like, the cynicism of commercialist Christmas and then not have the actual, like, cathartic emotional payoff of, like, this is what it should be about.
Yeah.
When your ending is like, what it should be about is saving your children with rocket packs. Like, wait, what?
Hang on.
This is not the message I was expecting.
That sounds expensive.
Yeah, not everyone can do that, movie. Make it a little more realistic for the common man. I was kind of expecting Myron to be lying about having a kid the whole time.
Yeah.
At the end, just to, like, get the toy.
Yeah.
But they don't.
He just wanted it so he could resell it.
Yeah, really.
Although also I don't know why he would do that on Christmas Eve, but
yeah, really. I love how much fucking mail he loses and purposely throws out throughout the course of the movie, where it's like he is not only arrested but fired and charged.
Yes.
With lots of stuff.
Yes. Federal crimes.
Federal crimes. Yeah. Federal as fuck.
Yeah. You don't fuck with the mail.
Yeah. Like, that's the hysterical thing too, is like, you can only imagine that after going through all of that, and like, I mean, they might void the whole fucking thing because eventually they're going to be like, you're not the guy who plays Turbo Man. So then they might go back and be like, so the toy wasn't yours to give out to kids. So therefore it's not your kid's toy to give out to.
Yeah.
So we're taking it back from Myron before he goes to federal prison. This is ridiculous. Like, they try to make it happy. Like, here, you give it to your kid. I'm lucky enough already.
Yeah.
And it's like moments later, it was like, and thank you.
Yes.
Evidence bag. Gone forever. Nobody else ever touches it again. It's like, oh, that's great. One of the main things that I really did love about the movie was the hysterical, like, so on point lesser toy in Booster, the like partner toy, where it's like there's tons of those and everyone's like, fuck that shit, to the point where they beat up the Booster dude and they're just like, everyone hates you, Booster. Just beating the hell out of him. Like, that's fucking hilarious. I think that is going to wrap it up for Popcorn for Dinner this week. We do have 2 more weeks in December, so we've got 2 more Christmas movies coming up. Going to be super fun.
Next week should be interesting.
Yeah, next week's probably going to be real silly. But it is sort of fun because, like, I don't necessarily go out of my way to not watch Christmas stuff, but I don't tend to put on a lot of Christmas stuff around Christmas.
Yeah.
Like, it's never really been my bag to be like, oh, I gotta watch Christmas movies and get in the Christmas mood. So it's like kind of forced to do it this year in this sense. And it's like, it's not so bad.
It's a shame we've both seen Die Hard.
Yeah, right. But that's gonna wrap it up for this week. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
You're my number 1 customer.